thought it was amazing. I'm jealous of a kid who got that for Hanukkah. Good morning. We're learning as this chus for Shalema Filan Chaya Basarach. We're at the Mishnah on Daf Samach Chesav now. So now we're going back to the topic that had been briefly mentioned in the past Mishnah. Kol ha'psul and shemokum likasam psula, a apostle who does malika. The malika is apostle. It's not going to make it into a kosher carbon. The Gemara is going to explain what psulin we're referring to. But it does help that the bird, the oif, does not become a nevela that's bebeis habliya. It sounds much more complicated than it is. We know that if you find a tree, it got hit by a car. So that has a tumas nevela. If someone touches it, it's matama them with tumas nevela. On the other hand, if you take a cow to the shlachtes and you do shchit on it, it's not nevela. It's not matama. So the question is, if you do a malika psula, which types of malika psula, so which types of shchita psulas, as we'll see, are going to make it that it's no longer a nevela? It means if you do a malika, but it has something wrong with it, there's a disqualification in the malika, is it considered that you just basically cut off the head of the animal with your thumb, and therefore it's an avela, the bird, and specifically that type of tuma of a oif tar, which is what we're talking about, it's matama differently than other tumas. It's not matama from touching, it's matama when you swallow it. And it's matama begodima basically, which is the way the Gemara refers to it. But it's another way just of saying that it becomes an avela. So it's saying a apostle that did malika, even though the malika is pasul, ain't a matama beis habli. It doesn't have the din of nevela, the tumas nevela. I just want to say quickly a shita mekubetzes, which I don't think we've ever seen one. Where is this at? I don't know where that is. But in any case, I found it before. The Shita Mekubetza says that the Rashi here is not our real Rashi, and the real Rashi on these Gemaras is here Rashi Ksaviyad Hashalem, or I don't know. You might have it as a different thing, described differently. I don't know. I can't find the Shita. But in any case, the point is that the correct Rashi is not the Rashis that we have on the page. The correct Rashis are the Rashi on the side. This is a different person. So in any case, Malak. Now we're going to go through the Mishnah. Malak b'smoil oy b'layla. If you did malika with the left hand, avodas have to be done with the right hand, and he did it with the left hand. Or b'layla. Sorry, Rabbi Tversky, am I in your seat? Oh, yeah, no. Oy b'layla, or he did the malika at night. All the avodas. Derech klal, the avodas in the Beis Hamikdash were done by day. All the shchitas of the karbanos were done by day, and he did it by night. Shachat chulin bifnim. If he brought a regular animal, not kachim, not something that was supposed to be a carbon, he shechted it, meaning he didn't do malika. He brought it into the azara and he shechted it there. But kachim b'chutz, or he shechted kachim b'chutz, meaning oif, he took it outside and he didn't do malika. He did shchit on it. Ain't a metamas bebeis habliya. These are not going to be metama bebeis habliya. We're going to see Rashi and Amud Beis. He's going to explain this, and you're going to see it through the Gemara. That the essential point of whether something is going to become an avela or not, it's going to be dependent on whether it affected the animal to an extent And the way we're going to decide whether the Malika was somewhat successful is whether it gets the status, or the Mishnah itself is going to say, the Torah says, Kodshe Hashem, Psule B'Kodesh. It has to be, the Torah describes it as Kodesh Hashem, so it has to be Psula Kodesh. What makes something Psula L'Kodesh? It means if it's brought up onto the Mizbeach, you don't take it down. So Malika is considered to be at least a partially successful Malika to make the animal Kodesh, if it will have the rule that even though you did this Malika incorrectly, and the person who was supposed to get a kapara didn't his kapara, and you're not supposed to continue with the avodah, but if you did put it on the mizbeach, you don't take it down. You leave it there to be burnt. That's im Allah terit. So all these things, Malik b'smoil, abelayla, sharchula b'fnim, kachem achutz, eina metamis b'beis abliya. Now, shacha chulim b'fnim, v'kachem achutz is going to be slightly different. That's because the shechita is considered to be a shechita to some extent. It's not like we said because it's kachem shachat chulin b'fnim. It's not going to have a dinim Allah yerid, but it still has a shechita. Malak b'sakin, we're by the Mishnah on Samach and Aleph. So again, we just said the very important rule for today. We're talking about which oifes have a din that if you do a malika psula, you do the malika incorrectly, nevertheless, it won't make the oif an avela to be matama tumas nevela. So we gave a list so far of a bunch of different types of psulas that are not going to be matama bebeis habliya, which is the way an oif is. That's a way of describing an oif that's treated like an avela to be matama. Malak besakin, if he did malika using a knife, so it's neither a good shechita nor a good malika. The malika has to be with his thumb. If he does it with a knife, he's doing it from the back. He's pushing it in the way Rashi describes, as opposed to cutting it. So it's an invalid shechita as well. Malak, right? We said shechita b'fnim is going to be ain't a matam beis habliya, but this malak besakin is going to be matam beis habliya. Malak chulim b'fnim, if he does malika on chulim b'fnim, the kacher mechutz, or he does kacher mechutz, if he brings tyron, we have a tur of bnei yaina, so a tur has to be a certain age in order to be a kasher oif, to be brought as a carbon, and this one was too young. Bnei yaina are the other way around; they have to be below a certain age. So if they were sha'ava zmana, that they were past that age, or shayav shagapa, that the wings dried out, shenimsis eina, its eye fell out, v'shenikta ragla, it's missing a leg, metama bebeis habliya. All of these last ones that we listed are metama bebeis habliya. Zehaklal, the Mishnah says, this is the rule, kol shepsule b'kodesh eina metama bebeis habliya. Anyone which its psul is b'kodesh, and the pashas, that means that it's psul happens after it already gets into the Beis HaMikdash. You bring it to Beis HaMikdash. It's not something like these different mumim that we described. That even before you brought it into the Beis HaMikdash, it was a bal mum, and it couldn't be a kasher or carbon. So about something that happened afterwards, like the first group that we described, where it was done balak b'smoil, which is it was a kosher carbon, but then he did the process wrong while it was already in the Beis Hamikdash. Balayla, and it doesn't mean that it actually happened in the Beis Hamikdash. It's something that belongs being done already once it's brought. It was done at night, or all these things are. It's not matam Beis Habliya. That's considered to be enough of a malika that it's not going to be in a veil. But if it was not so, then it's not matama Beis Habliya. So let's see the Rashi. The Rashi is Where Rashi Ksavyara Sholem Betamim Beis Abelia. If you could look at the Rashi and the Ksavyat on the side, we gave the. It doesn't mean that the regular Rashi. It means the Rashi in the little words. So it says Metamim Beis Abelia. The Rashi Dolei Hani Malika Lemidi. Shafilu Alu Yardu. Even if it was brought, this Malika did not accomplish anything. Because even if you bring it onto the Beis Hamikdash, onto the Mizbech, you still have to bring it down. She'em psulim b'kodesh, and therefore that means that's the way these two things go together. If it's an alu yardu, then it's not considered to be psulim b'kodesh, which is what the Mishnah described as the person who's nevela. It's not going to be a nevela. Whoever the psulim is b'kodesh, the din is im alu yard. V'kiven she'enim materis as iser, v'yimim mimashrois nevelu treifa. We're going to see psukim from the Velu Trefa that we'll use to tell you this thing. Amara. Now we mentioned a number of things in the Mishnah that if the Malika had these psulim, it's not going to be Matam Beis Abelia. And we said other things that they are. Amarav, Smoil Velayla, Ein Matam Beis Abelia, which is what we said in our Mishnah. We said we do a Malika Smoil and Malika Belayla. Those are Bakaidish, it's considered Psule Bakaidish, and therefore it's not Matam Beis Abelia. Zar V'sakin, Matam Beis Abelia. And a sakin, our Mishnah had said that it is Matam Beis Abelia. A sakin, it's not because it's not Tumah Bakaidish, it's because it's not a valid shchita of any kind. It's not a Malika. These things that we say Psule Bakaidish L'gabe Malika, this is he's doing a Malika B'sakin, it wasn't a Malika. But what about Zar? Zar is a new one. Zar wasn't mentioned in the Mishnah. Zar who did the Avodah. And we're saying that a Zar, according to Rav, it is Matama Beis Abelia. Why is it that we said that a smoil, that a shchita that was done b'smoil, a malika that was done b'smoil, that it's going to be considered loy metame? It's not metame Beis Abelia. It's considered to be a kodesh. This lech sheira b'yom Kippur. The Gemara is saying the reason must be why it's considered by kodesh is because it has hechsher on Yom Kippur. The Kohen Gadol, when he brings the ketairis into the lefnai v'lefnim, he carries it with both hands, and that's the example where we have that there is an avodah that can be done with your left hand. So since an avodah can be done with your left hand, even though malika is not supposed to be done with your left hand, if you do so, it's still considered to be bakodesh. It's defined as it's bakodesh, and therefore it's not matam beis ablila. The laila is leich sheir be'evarim v'dar, and laila as well. There is some type of avodah that's done at night that, although the shchita and the avodas hadam is all done by day, but the leftover evarim that have to be brought for an oil that they burnt on the mizbeach, and I'm sorry, the evarim is the emurim, the chalev that's brought on the mizbeach, and the fedarim, which is the fedarim is the different parts of the animal of an oil that get burnt. That could all be done at night. So there is a concept of avodas laila. So therefore, even though malika is not supposed to be done at night, if it's done by night, it's sufficient that it gets it in, that it's not going to be matam beis abelia. So Zaktamar, if that's the case, Zar nami is leich sheir b'shchita. Zar also has a hechsher by shchita that a Zar is allowed to do shchita of a regular carbon. Right? The Zar is not excluded. Zaktamar, no, that's not a taina. So you're arguing on Rav that Rav says a Zar is matam beis abelia because it's Psula is not Bakaidish, but Psula Bakaidish we're defining as those things that have some type of hechsher. Zar Lechar also has a hechsher. The Gemara Shchita lav avoidi. The shchita of an animal for a carbon is not an avoidi, and so it's not. You can't bring a right. You can't say there's a sheira b'shchita. Shchita, the shchita of a carbon is excluded from being an avoida altogether. So the Gemara of Loy, Amr of Zera, shchita para bizar psula. Zera had said that shchita of para aduma bizar is possible. So if you see that a zar can't do the shchita's para aduma, The Vaisa is the Shechita is an Avodah. Why else would it be that a Kohen can't do it if not for the fact that it's an Avodah? Or Mechvi Rav Allah Zevachim. And Rav said, that's correct because it says Elazar and it says Chukah. Elazar, the Satam Oisam El Elazar Akayin. This is talking about the Shechita of the Paraduma. It says you give it to Elazar Akayin, meaning to a Kayin. And it says Zais Chukah Satayra. So to Chukah means that it's required, it's Ma'akev. So you see that a Kayin is Ma'akev by Paraduma. So you see Shechita is an Avodah. Saktumar no. Shani Para, the Kache Bedek Abayasi. You can't bring a raya that from the fact that Paraduma has to be brought by a Kayin, because a Para altogether is not a Kaidish, not Kachim. It's not something that's brought on the Mizbeach. There's no Avodas Hadam. There's no, it's not done in the Mizbeach, in the Beis HaMikdash altogether. It's Kache Bedek Abayasi. When you just dedicate the Para to be used for whatever the Kihila needs, but it's not Kaidish. It's not Kache Guf. It's not Lushas HaGuf. So even though it can only be by Kayin, obviously that requirement of Kayin is not making it into Avodah, because the whole Kaidish, the whole Kachim of a Paraduma is not Kache Guf. So it's Hektish is a different thing. Hektish is when you makdish something for Hektish, but then that's Hektish is again not Kache Guf. That's Kedushas Dam. That's something that when you makdish it, it's going to be sold. It could be used to fix the walls. It could be used for whatever. But when we talk about something being an avodah, it has to be something where you gave an animal or you gave a silas, and it's intended to be brought on the mizbeach. That's a different level of kedusha. So paraduma doesn't have that kind of kedusha. Which is the same thing as kol shekein. It means it's not a kal v'chaymer. Kacher bedek bayis bo kahuna kacher mizbeach mi bayit. What are you saying? What are you saying? You're saying paraduma needs kahuna, but that's not avodah, so that doesn't mean anything. But if you see that even something that's kacher bedek bayis needs kahuna, and the absence of kahuna ruins it, certainly if you have a malika by someone who's not a kayin, that should ruin this malika and make it that the animal, the oif, is going to be in a vela. That's going to be mekad metama bebeis habliya. Kacher begais by kahuna, kacher mizbeach mi bayeh. Amar Shisha Brei Davidi, Midi Ahava Amaris Nagayim, Delava Voidahi, Bayi Kahuna. Lord says, no, the fact that it needs kahuna does not necessarily teach you that the lack of kahuna makes it not an avodah. Just like we see Maris Nagayim, a kohen is the one who checks it. He checks the nega. That doesn't mean that checking a nega is an avodah. And you could see that something that doesn't have, that's, the dine kahuna, there's dine kahuna, the kohen can't become tameh, a kohen is not allowed to marry a grusha. That has nothing to do with the din, to say that because we see that paraduma has to be done with the kohen, therefore the lack of a kohen by malika will for sure make that into a nevela. It's two separate things. The requirements of kahuna in various other aspects of Judaism doesn't dictate to us that the lack of a kahuna here makes this such an invalid malika that it will make the leftover oif an nevela. Practic Gemara. V'neilef mibama. Okay, so you say I can't learn out from paraduma, but let's learn out from bama. A bama is these, before the time of the Beis HaMikdash, the Yidden were allowed to bring karbanos on a bama, and those could be brought even by non-Kehanim. The avodah in a bama was very different than the avodah in the Beis HaMikdash. It was done by Zarim as well. So you see, let's see Rashi on this. V'neilef mibama. V'neilef mibama nema malika zar im also loitered. Let's say that it should get a din of also loitered. Zar kasha bebama. Shavoidim b'chayris. A zar can bring bebama. So let's ask a kasha from bama. We said legabi bringing by night. It has a shera by evar mufdar. And we said doing it b'smoil it's not going to be metama beis habliya, because we find Yom Kippur that there is such a thing that you bring with the left hand. So why don't we have the same kasha on Rav? Why is Rav saying that if a zar does it, it's going to become a nevela? Why don't we say we find that by a bama, a zar can bring a carbon? So that should tell us that it should be a malalaiterid, and therefore it should be considered sula b'kodesh. So tomorrow, mi bama lo yalef. He says you can't learn that from bama. Bama is an entirely different category. So it's those are different. It's not the same type of kedusha to learn out from. So the Gemara, is that true? Beloy, ba'tanya minayin liyotza. How do we know if a animal was yotza? If you brought a carbon and then you took it out of the azar, so that you're not allowed to do that. And it parcels the carbon. Shem Allah lo yerid. But nevertheless, even though it becomes puzzle, if it was brought up onto the mizbeach, you don't take it down. Shari yotza kosher b'mama, because yotza is kosher b'mama. It's not just yotza is kosher b'mama. The whole din of bama is yotza. It's all outside of the azara. So you see that it has a hechsher, legabe the fact that it could be brought on, that you could have karbanos brought on a bama, they're not in the Beis Hamikdash. So even if you yaitza, it should also have that same thing, just like we said legabe smoil, because it's done on Yom Kippur, and we said legabe evarim ufadarim that they're done at night. So therefore, by night it's not going to be tummy. So the same thing, and therefore it's im Allah yerid. So there should also be a malala yerid because of the bama. So you see that we do look to bama. You can't say you don't learn from bama. We see the Bryce says you do learn from bama. So we're not coming, even though we're saying that it comes from bama, but it's really coming from a different place. It's coming from the Torah says zois Torah sa'ila, which tells you that yaitza is going to have a din. It really comes from a pasuk, and this din from bama is just like an asmachta b'alma or a supporting svara, but it's not the real limud because einachanami you can't learn out from a bama. So that is the end of Rav. So Rav, we said essentially we went back and forth, but Rav is saying that you learn out that if you have a zar do a malika, that is going to be metama bebeis habliya, because it has, we have no good case where a zar does an avoida that it's kosher. Therefore, a zar does avoida, it's im Allah tered, and therefore it's going to be metama bebeis habliya. That's Rav's svar. Rabbi Yochanan zar ain't metama bebeis habliya. Rabbi Yochanan says no. A zar is not metama beis. Sakin metama beis habliya, but he agrees with him that a sakin is metama beis habliya. He disagrees with Rav. Tanan. So we go back to our Mishnah. Kol psulin shemolkum likasam psula. We said in our Mishnah, all psulin that did malika, the malika is pasul. We didn't say what psulin are. That was Rashi put it at the beginning. We have it in parentheses at the beginning of the Mishnah. Some move it around to the end of the Mishnah, but it says this in the Mishnah that psul and shemalkom likasam psul. It's a general statement. So Bishlam Rabbi Yochanan kol asu yazar. We say kol psulin. That's telling you even a zar that does malika, it's malikasai psula, but it's ein matama beis habliya. El Rav kol asu yemai. What is this kol including? He says that a zar that is metama, that does a malika, is metama beis habliya. So it couldn't be included in this statement that it's psul and below, but it's not metama beis habliya. Zakta la, my lav lasuya smoil v'layla. So it says no. The charetz coming to include also if he did it with his left hand and did it at night. Our Mishnah said smoil v'layla. What does it have to say? Kol psulin to include smoil v'layla if it's going to say it later on. So Gemara Tani, Bahedjik Tani, Tani v'hada mefarish. No, first it says kol psul, and then it explains what is the kol psul in Smoil and Lila. Tashma. Now we ask from the end of the Mishnah. Zeh klal kol haya psula b'kodesh ein neptam gadim beis abliya. At the end, we say another general statement in the Mishnah that anything that psula is b'kodesh is not metam beis abliya. It's coming to include zar. El Rav lasuyamai. So Rabbi Yochanan will say, according to this, Rabbi Yochanan would agree with what we had said in B'Shem Rav, that the first general statement is coming to include, it's coming to include Lila and Smoil, and the Mishnah is just explaining what it said at the beginning, and now at the end, it's also coming to include a Zar. El Rav lasuyamai. But according to Rav, what is this last statement of Kol Shapsula B'Kodesh Ein Metama? What is that including? The Mishnah doesn't just say Kol Shapsula B'Kodesh Ein Metama Beis Abliya. It says Lo Hayipsula B'Kodesh Metama Beis Abliya. So what does that coming to include? Elo, you have to explain both of these parts. Elo Reisha Lasuya Shchitas Kachim B'Fnim. Our Mishnah had said Malikas Kachim B'Fnim, but it didn't say. I'm sorry. It said Shchitas Kachim B'Chutz. It didn't say Shchitas Kachim B'Fnim. And Sefer Lasuya Malikas Chulam B'Chutz, because we had said Malikas Chulam B'Fnim. The Mishnah did not say Malikas Chulam B'Chutz. So we said that the Mishnah. Let me see what this Mishnah said. We said Malak Chulam B'Fnim and Kachim B'Chutz. It's going to be Mitama Bebeis Abliya. But the ratio over here that says Kol Shapsul B'Kodesh Ein Mitama Bebeis Abliya, we never mentioned the case of Shchitas Kachim B'Fnim. And it's coming to tell you, if you shecht Kachim B'Fnim, even though it's supposed to do Malika, it's going to be and the Sefer that said it's going to tell you Malika, not a Shchita. So it's like as if you chopped off the head of the Chulin. If you doing a Shlachta, you do Malika, it's going to be Metama Bebeis Abliya. So this is the way they could both explain this Sefer. The same way Rabbi Yochanan is also going to have to say this explanation, because he only has an explanation for Zar for the first part of the Sefer. He doesn't have an explanation for the second part. So therefore, once he's saying that, the Rav can also use that explanation. Tani Kavas Rabbi Yochanan, we have a brisa that says exactly like Rabbi Yochanan. Malka Zar, Malka Apostle, if a Zar does Malika, or if a Kayan who's Apostle does Malika, HaPigel, HaNoiser, HaTameh, or if they did Malika with Pigel or Noiser, or Tameh. I'm sorry, if something became Pigel, the basa became Pigel, or became Noiser, became Tameh, Ein Metama Beis Abliya. All these are considered to be Psula B'Kodesh. It's not Metama Beis Abliya, so we include a Zar who did Malika. This is a brisa like Rabbi Yochanan, not like Rav. Amr of Yitzchak, Shamati Shtayim, Achas Kmitza Zar. Rabbi Yitzchak also has what to say about this machlokes Rav and Rabbi Yochanan, whether Malika Bezar is going to be Metama Beis Abliya. Amr Yitzchak, Shamati Shtayim, Achas Kmitza Zar, Achas Malika Zar, Achas Tered, Achas Lo Tered. I heard about between Kmitza Zar and Malika Zar, you have Kmitza, which is the beginning of the Avodah of a Mincha, and Malika Zar, which is the beginning of the Avodah of Oif, that one of them, if it goes up on the Mizbeach, it's the din is Tered, and therefore it's going to be Metama Beis Abliya. Achas Lo Tered, and one doesn't come down. I mean, it's not, there's no such thing as that it's going to be Metama Beis Abliya by a Mincha. It's not an animal. But it's like if this would apply, if the one that Malika Zar is Tered, then the din is that it would be Metama Beis Abliya. If it's not Tered, then it's not Metama Beis Abliya. But Lo Yadana, he says, I don't know which one. I don't remember if it was Malika Zar that it's Tered or Kmitza Zar that's Tered. Amar Chis, Mistama Kmitza Tered, Malika Lo Tered. L'chayra, It's Kmitza is the one that goes down. If he did Kmitza by Azar, it has, even if it was brought onto Mizbeach, it has to come down. Malika loiter. Maishnach, Malika. Why is a Malika different? The Yeshna Babama, so what the Gemara speculates, what must be his reason why he says Malika doesn't come down? The Yeshna Babama. Because like we said before, because you have a Zar can do Avayda Babama. Kmitza Nami Yeshna Babama. If you hold that Malika can be done on a Bama, Kmitza can also be done on a Bama. And if you'll say that no, there's no minchas on a Bama at all, so there's no such thing as Kmitza, certainly not Kmitza Babama if there's no minchas on a Bama, but the two things are intertwined, then that case is Ein Oivis Nami Babama. So then you wouldn't have any limud to tell you that im Alalai Tered by an Oif. Because the two things the two things go together. If there is such a thing as a mincha on a bama, then that means there is an oif. If there's no oif on a bama, there's no mincha. Yesh mincha bama, yesh oifus bama. L'divrei aimer ein mincha ein oifus. My timer Zevachim v'loy menacha Zevachim v'loy oifus. The Torah says that the bama you bring Zevachim on a bama. So we darshan Zevachim means only Zevachim, only animals, but not a mincha. Zevachim v'loy oifus. We also dash with the same word that oifus are excluded. Ela'ema ain't kiddush b'klisharis b'mincha b'bama. Elamai, you have to say there's no kiddush b'klisharis of a mincha on a bama. It means it's not that there's no kmitza on a bama, but if it's brought in a klisharis, then we must be saying that we're going to demand the amma that there are oifus b'bama and there are a mincha b'bama. However, only in oif it's going to have din ma'olulei terid, because if it can be brought on a bama, but there's no such thing as being mekadesh b'klisharis by a bama. So therefore, since that doesn't apply by a bama, the kmitza of a bama is not going to tell you that kmitza bizarre is im alaloi terid. Okay, we'll stop over here. We'll have to finish to the Mishnah tomorrow.